Scott Snyder has said there are going to be 8 books to start off the Absolute Universe. Right now, we know 5. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern. So today I'm gonna make some guesses about what those last 3 books can be. First though, we've gotten a solid amount of new art from the 3 main books. So take a look at some of this stuff. This one especially from Daniel Warren Johnson rocks. And so does this one from Mitch Gerards. Also, Batman has a battle axe, and he can take off his ears to use as knives or something. And it's also his cape that he uses as whips. So yeah, he's got a crazy arsenal. No, he won't kill, but he will be violent. But how can you be violent with a giant battle axe but not kill is beyond me. There's no way he wouldn't just be cleaving people in half, like accidentally or something. The bat symbol itself has gone a bit viral as of late, leading to a lot of people clowning on it. Perhaps rightfully so, but we've got some funny memes out of it, and Snyder also is messing with people as well. So it's all in good fun. Also, look at this Absolute Wonder Woman piece by Dan Panosian. Anyways, another thing that's been said is that you have no plans for the characters to meet each other yet. I doubt that is true, but if it is not, then that's a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it means that each book will have its own room to grow without worrying about crossovers. But also then, what is the end goal for this universe? Surely a Justice League has to form to fight against Darkseid or something. Back to the last 3 books. Snyder has said a few of the books will be led by a person of color. Right now, only one of the Absolute books is, that being Joe Mullane as Green Lantern. So there should be at least one more. Now there could be some race swaps or reimaginings, but I kinda doubt that, given they said they do not want new characters taking the mantle of established heroes, so as far as names and such, it will be the same character. There's also a high chance that these books are miniseries, because there's no way DC is going to have 8 ongoings happen in an alternate universe. And so we could definitely take some swings as far as looking towards characters who are not traditionally considered A-listers, or even just popular characters. And I'm just going to be spitballing some potential stories that could work for these characters in this universe. So if there's anyone from DC watching, this is my email, it's in the description. Let me actually pitch something, please. Aquaman. In this new universe, they could really take a shot at doing a Jason Momoa-inspired Aquaman in both looks and personality. If we're talking about the POC angle, then yeah, a Polynesian Aquaman makes so much sense. People love Aquaman now, or at least Momoa. We could also see an Aquaman who may not be royalty, and thus would be looked at as even more of an outsider by the Atlanteans. Breaking from the royalty background in general opens up so many more doors. It could show us an Arthur who is less uptight, for the lack of a better word, and more free and kinda goofy, more of a loose cannon. And we could get some of the world building that the movies have and the comics don't. Like, where's the big crab guys? Come on. And we've seen Wonder Woman is leaning into being a witch, and Atlantean magic is one area that hasn't been touched on as much. Oh wait, what's that? The leaks say that there is no Aquaman book, but doesn't he have the biggest box office in DC history? And another movie that did pretty well considering Warner Brothers barely marketed it. And even though there has not been an Aquaman related book for 2 years and a solo book for 3. So are DC just giving up on the character? Like, what's the deal? He's not the joke from superfans anymore. His last recent solo books were pretty well received. I mean, they tried like hell to push Jackson as Aquaman and that failed miserably. So why give up on Arthur too? Fine, no Aquaman I guess. But let's look at the other book that was actually leaked. Martian Manhunter. Over the course of the character's 70-year existence, he's had 5 series, with only one of them lasting more than a year. So him getting a book was very unexpected. It's rumored to be written by Denise Camp, which is funny because he is currently killing it at Marvel on Ultimates. And so he would be writing books for both companies' alt universes, while also not having a single book within their main universes. That's a very specific niche he has found himself in, especially given that neither of these universes existed 2 years ago. I suppose since Batman looks like he's more of a brawler or ninja brawler or I don't know, wrestler type deal, there's a space for a detective is what I'm getting at. An alien detective solving human mysteries as a base concept holds a lot of potential. Especially when this alien can shapeshift into whoever he wants to be and also read minds. In Darwin Cook's masterpiece, The New Frontier, the Martian Manhunter was a Gotham cop, one of the few honest amongst all the corrupt. That's another angle that could be interesting given his ability to read minds. and thus know who is corrupt and who is not. It also led him to pairing with people who weren't cops to solve cases, like Slam Bradley. The design should be interesting, given that this is more of a hard-edged universe, then surely they will lean towards a more alien one. But even the more alien ones in the comics are still traditional 1950s era alien movie looking. So if they could go even more alien and maybe do some body horror stuff, there's an interesting angle there. But him also getting a book makes Aquaman not getting a book even more confusing. Because in the modern Justice League, you traditionally have 7 characters. The Trinity of Flash, a Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Aquaman. In Absolute Power, the event that's supposed to lead us into the Absolute Universe, these were the 7 heroes who lost their powers and are more or less the leads. And so 6 of these characters are getting books, so why not Aquaman? From a traditional leaguer, let's go to someone who only recently switched sides. Harley Quinn. A Harley that is detached from the Joker. Now, would it be pretty weird to have her and not a more traditional hero? Sure, but we have to consider the fact that Harley is probably DC's 4th or even 3rd biggest character right now. Caped Crusader did a Harley detached from Joker. That was an interesting take, although she was still very much a villain there and still obviously attached to the world of Batman. Would DC be bold enough to do something like this so early though? A full-on anti-hero book, a character whose comic sales are mixed and has only recently found such popularity? But the money, the merch, the Hot Topic stores, the Halloween costumes, yeah, DC would totally do this. What's the pitch? Well, spoilers for Caped Crusader, but that had Harley as a therapist who grew disillusioned with her rich clients, who would confess all of their evils to her, and thus she decided to act on it. She did so by kidnapping them and brainwashing them, but if they wanted to lean more into an anti-hero route, she could just be a vigilante with a similar motive. Instead of, kidnapping them, she simply beats them up or tries to expose them. And it's not like we haven't seen someone using their profession to be a hero or anti-hero before. Vigilante, the one who's in Peacemaker, but in the comics he's not Deadpool light. He was a district attorney and used his connections there to solve cases. Manhunter also did this, and if we go across the street to Marvel, then you of course have Daredevil. The universe is already pretty hard-edged anyway, so a villain turned hero or anti-hero fits the overall mindset. In a universe filled with underdogs, Harley could be the ultimate underdog. Anti-heroes and villains turned heroes tend to be looked down upon within their own universe. She's just become such a marketable character now, it might make less sense to not have her in this lineup, especially when you do have 8 books. But let's go to a character who is much less marketable in The Atom. This one is coming completely from my biases, because I think The Atom is pretty cool. I've always been a fan of the shrinking and growing heroes like Ant-Man. And also I think the Atom costume is genuinely one of the most perfect superhero costumes out there. Now the costume would and probably should change given that's part of the fun of the universe, but the basis of it is still good. If he appears in this universe, I assume it would be Ryan Choi. Instead of being a university teacher or student, they could lean into the Scott Lang route and make him an ex-con, or go all the way to Eric O'Grady, who used the suit for nefarious deeds. In general, it could be fun to have an idiot using the shrinking technology for once. When they shrink down to Atom's size, they won't understand what they're looking at, and it could really add to the whole sense of discovery to the character. And shrinking characters in general have so much potential that neither company has really fully unlocked yet. Like, what are the worlds, the people, the creatures that could exist at a subatomic level? Quantumania? Bad movie. But it scratched some of the surface of what a whole subatomic world could look like. And I think you could really do something like that with the Atom. It already did kind of happen with Sword of the Atom, which was an older story where Ray Palmer shrunk down, but even then, he was still like ant-sized. He wasn't super small. So let's just go smaller and explore what hasn't been explored. And also in Quantumania, it was just very space alien-like. I don't think you really need to do that. You could surely find some other interesting way to do it than just space but small. Moving on from science fiction, magic exists in this universe with Wonder Woman being a witch. So, Shazam. What would Shazam even stand for in this universe? Could it be something completely different, since Wonder Woman might lean into different areas of mythology? The base concept of a kid becoming an adult hero has so much potential, but it is more or less trapped in the framework of the character being from its time period. This universe would be an opportunity for a writer to break from that. Break from the super lighthearted and kid-oriented storytelling, which is not a bad thing. But there's a lot to be explored if they don't stay within that. Like, what are the mental tolls of being a boy who constantly transforms into an adult? Does he have some kind of identity crisis? Like, when you're an adult, there's advantages in life, especially compared to a 10 to 12-year-old kid. You're just gonna have access to so much more, and so would you just end up staying as an adult longer? Would you prefer to just not go back to being a kid? Especially since that life is so much more undesirable. Having to bounce around different foster homes, and not being able to have the people to support him in life. Maybe you play it like Monster Girl from Invincible, who can turn into a big monster, but doing so ends up making her age down. So maybe turning into Shazam has some side effect that Billy needs to keep in check. It doesn't even have to be Billy, but any member from the Shazam family can take the mantle and make it their own. DC has been trying to push Mary Marvel recently to mixed results, but she's a fun character, and having her as the main Shazam could be a fun thing to do. But speaking of younger heroes, what about Cyborg? The big key to Cyborg having a book in this universe is that, remember, this is built on Darkseid energy, and so it makes sense to have someone who is connected to Darkseid in the main universe. And that's where Cyborg fits, having been birthed from a mother box with his new origin. And his robotic parts of his body are always evolving or reacting to what Darkseid is doing. He's also just always been an interesting character, although one who has struggled to breach the upper echelons of DC because he always gets relegated back to the Titans or to being more childish or something. Once again, this is a character where there's potential to do some weird body horror stuff. Like, think of the RoboCop clip that is now the basis for funny memes. There's also just so much to impact with the idea of where does his humanity end and him being a robot begin? It's an internal conflict that does tend to be the center of all his stories, but it's never not fascinating. So those are just some of my ideas for what could be next for the Absolute Universe. At least a couple of them should hopefully be announced in October at New York Comic Con. But in the meantime, which characters do you want to see in the Absolute Universe? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.